Welcome to the Secrets to Mindful Health, where we explore the hidden truths of wellness in all its forms. From physical and mental health to spirituality, join me, your host, Beth Warren, at Nourish by Beth on Instagram and TikTok, registered dietitian for over a decade, and single mom of 6, as I share my personal journey overcoming challenges towards self-love and wellness. Together with my guests, we will inspire and motivate you to prioritize your well-being and create a life of balance and fulfillment. Let's embark on a transformative journey towards a healthier, happier you. I'm glad you're here. In this episode, Emotionally Unstuck, healing your relationship with food and reclaiming your best self, we will be discussing finding food freedom, managing your weight, and cultivating self-love. I'm looking for an interactive and enlightening conversation, so I'm always open to your comments and feedback. We're going to uncover the 7 signs of hunger and fullness and discover how to nourish your body in a healthy and fulfilling way without shame or judgment. Learn how to have empowering conversations with yourself to break free from emotional eating and create a positive relationship with food. It'll be an opportunity to transform food and your relationship with it and yourself. And it's just with me, Beth Warren, the host of the podcast. And the reason why I chose to make this an episode is because I actually speak often to groups, and I gave this to a Women's Day, this actual talk, and I spoke about it so much on my social media at Nourished by Beth, Instagram and TikTok, that I decided to share it with the world because it's so empowering. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get down to the basics, okay? There's plenty of reasons why we eat. Let that sit a second. Plenty of reasons why we eat, and they're all normal. There are actually 7 signs of hunger, and they're very natural, and they're feelings that we need to satisfy, all the areas of hunger. Number 1, eye hunger. The way food looks. You know, back in the day, our parents commenting, I eat with my eyes, or in a berated sense, don't eat with your eyes when you take a big plate because it just looks so good. At the same time, the concept of Instagram, while looking at my social media, I definitely work in food styling. I write a column for Mishpacha magazine. Part of it is food styling and food photography. And the way food looks absolutely is a hunger inside ourselves that we do need to listen to and satisfy. It doesn't only have to mean healthy or unhealthy. None of this is about that. This is just about recognizing and accepting parts of ourselves that we feel sincerely and do need to be satisfied. And then we just listen with curiosity. And sometimes when we have this openness and curiosity, we are calmer. We can think more clear versus getting anxious that, oh no, I'm having a feeling pop up around food. How am I still hungry, but I just ate? Well, maybe your food didn't look so good. Maybe it looked like slop. Personally, I happen to get very turned on from food that looks like slop. I love when all food is mushed together for some odd reason. I don't know if any of you guys are with me on that. It's all relative to the person, whatever satisfies your eye hunger, but it's an area of hunger that needs to be satisfied. And if it's not, and you're wondering why you're still hungry, even though your stomach is full, potentially, you didn't make it look appealing. So take note. Number 2, nose hunger. How a food smells. How many of you smell your food first or are around family members or friends or spouses that smell their food? I have my daughter who does this. And in the beginning, before I knew about all this, I used to be like, why do you keep smelling the food? Like, it got to me feeling like it was like insulting or something. But actually, it's one of the cues that you need to satisfy in hunger, how something smells. And that's why stores pump in actual scents to get you excited, because your nose is leading there and it's satisfied, and that gives you a sense of satisfaction. And again, if you have a cold, think of when we have a cold or we're sick and we can't taste food. Sometimes we find ourselves eating and we know we just ate. We feel the food in our stomach, but because we lost our sense of smell, like COVID, anyone? Horrible, horrible, because we didn't satisfy the nose hunger. Number 3 is mouth hunger. That means the way of food feels as a sensation in our mouth. Think of smoothies. That's one of my best examples. Smoothies, some people will drink a very balanced, macronutrient balanced smoothie and express, but I'm still hungry or I feel like I didn't eat. That's because the sensation of the liquid didn't translate into a mouth hunger satisfaction. It didn't satisfy them in their mouth. The act of chewing not only starts to break down food and have a lot of digestive mechanisms with enzymes inside your mouth, but there is a sensory experience in your mouth that some people don't tap into. Sometimes you can allow the liquid to potentially pool in your mouth a little longer until your brain gets the sensation that you are, in fact, eating just in drink form. Or you can decide smoothies don't do it for you, but recognizing it's not because you didn't eat, have the calories that you needed, protein, carbs. It can be that too if it's not. And then I encourage you to see me in my private practice. But if you know you hit all the elements, it could be that it didn't satisfy your mouth hunger. Number 4 is stomach hunger. Stomach hunger is the one we know of, that physical feeling inside your stomach, that stomach feels empty or growling or whatever cues you identify with being physically hungry in your stomach. That's stomach hunger. One way to tune into that is before you eat to take a second. In our Jewish religion, we have the concept of blessings. I know a lot of other religions do too. It allows you to tap in a moment internally and see how you're feeling as well. Rate your hunger. Am I very hungry right now? Hungry, satisfied, full, stuffed. This is the lesson I teach kids. Our second time meeting, working with kids and nutrition is not about putting them on a diet, nor adults, FYI. That is not the secret to weight management. Nutrition education and behavioral modification is my motto and strategy. So when I get them young and teach them these hunger, fullness signals and cues, it opens up a whole new world for them that I know as you guys are hearing this, you're like, if I had that when I was younger, boy, oh boy. So it's not about the food or just about the food. It is about the sensations that we're feeling, accept them within ourselves, love them, very normal, and then just hit them. Hit them with the tiniest tweaks. So we could rate our hunger before and then allow that to then dictate our food choices after. And that's our stomach hunger. Number 5 is cellular hunger. I attribute that to feeling like low iron, for example. My oldest daughter was significantly low in iron, and I was wondering why she's chomping on ice all the time. Chomping on ice, like in an abnormal way, not just I'm cold or someone's having a baby and they're eating ice. I mean, I'm hot, so they want to have something cold and refreshing. It was like it's called pica. It's a sensation that your body's like missing something or craving red meat or all these things that more on a cellular level, your body's telling you you're missing something. I find that very interesting. Number 6 is mind hunger. This is where we're going to get into the emotional discussion, but not quite yet. Mind hunger is another sign of hunger and fullness. Oh, that's just what you think. It's a little bit to do with emotional, but it's also about being too stimulated. Mind hunger is a little bit more about noise, like being in a very noisy environment, like when certain diners or restaurants, their acoustics are crazy and you're just getting a little boggled. You're just that type's very sensitive to that. So you might need peace and quiet. I hear this a lot of time with moms around 4 o'clock and their kids serving their kids dinner 5 o'clock and they're happy to eat, but they can't handle just the chaos and the mayhem and then their focus on food. Makes a lot of sense. So then they wait till 7:30, 8 till their kids fall asleep. You see the issue in that, and this is a talks that I've had already on my podcast, is you still need to eat a snack because you can't go too long without food. Then you're going to overeat later. I encourage you to check out my other podcast episodes on that. But it does make sense that they are overstimulated in those moments, and that's because the mind hunger isn't being met. So number 6 is mind hunger. 7 is heart hunger. Heart hunger is emotions. We eat not always negatively for emotions. It could be happy birthday, I'm having a piece of cake, not because I'm hungry, but because this is exciting and I'm celebrating. We can go hang out with old friends and go for ice cream. Very normal to eat for emotional reasons. sometimes because we have an element inside us called heart hunger, and that does need to be satisfied. So whenever we are having these feelings around food, just stop and be curious for a second. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, a lot of times we're freaking out. Oh no, I'm going for the cookies at night when you just ate dinner and you just can't stop. Okay, take a breath, take a pause, try to identify why you're hungry. Now it's not such a simple question, and it's definitely not a simple answer, but it is a clear one. You can say, oh, well, I'm feeling some feelings right now, which is what we're going to get into. I got to satisfy my heart hunger. What do I want to do in this moment? And a lot of that conversation can only happen if you're not judging yourself in those moments, if you're not feeling shame, and if you're able to be open and curious about what you're really feeling. The issue is that most people are avoiding the feelings or don't want to feel that way. So that actually would, in more extreme cases, make them eat more and quicker because they don't want to be present for it. They want to just finish all the cookies and pretend they did it, or they're not having these feelings, or something around that. And that's because they're suppressing it or pushing it away, when really we should let it in, and that will change the trajectory significantly. And again, there's nothing wrong with you to have feelings or different areas of hunger that weren't being met yet. I just want to take a step back now that we clarified some things on a very simple physiological level. Hunger is real, and there's many elements of it, and they all need to be satisfied within ourselves. And everybody has a different objective in that, and everybody's different sensitivities in that. It depends on the person, and that's okay. But what is it about that emotional trigger when it comes to food? Why do we feel there's so much around that? Well, the first place we ever experienced being fed was literally when we came out of the womb. Whether we were breastfed or bottle fed, it showed us safety. It showed us love. As we started to grow as babies, it's one of the areas of safety. You guys know I'm a mom of 6 kids. I've been through this. You know that if you hear a baby crying, they either need to be changed diaper, they either need a nap, or they need to be fed. Okay. It's one of the elements of safety, love. Of course, it's emotionally connected. Of course, it gives us feelings. It's the essence of how we begin. I took a breath because this podcast is meant to make you feel like you can take a breath too. Okay. You giving more understanding around this topic allows you to start being more open about, okay, now what's going on with me, right? In more extreme cases, when you come to disordered eating disorders, bulimia, a lot of time, or binge eating, they can't get enough food in because for them it's about love. And no matter how much I take in, I can never absorb the love. When it comes to anorexia and restricting foods, they're more emotionally avoidant. They want to avoid the connection. They want to avoid the love. This is why when working with clients with eating disorders, I need a team in place depending on the extremities. It is a spectrum. Having disordered eating behaviors is one thing, and you always want to catch it in that net. But when it becomes a full-blown eating disorders, there's a lot more here. And I value that. And I give people credit to explore that, because as long as you see the full picture, that it's manifesting in food, but for emotional reasons, and get at the emotional reasons while reestablishing your relationship with food and what to eat. I mean, kudos. That is the name of the issue, and we can really get somewhere with that. So always feel free to reach out for some help and support. From there, I just want to explain, we define the levels of hunger just on a very physiological standpoint, but we have to understand the levels of communication within ourselves and how to speak to that. So we have our brain telling us what to do in a very logical sense. So our brain feels logic. Our brain speaks logic, excuse me. Our brain speaks logic. Then we have emotions. So what else potentially could drive decisions and drive actions? It's our emotions. Emotions speak feelings. Emotions speak feelings. Your brain speaks logic, emotions speak feelings. And guess what, guys? There's a third level that I took a very long time to identify. I've always felt it. I've never known to listen to it. And now it's my best, most lovable self. And that is your soul, your energy, your intuition. People call it chakras. I think every religion and school of thought calls it somewhere else. The spirit. I call it the soul because in Judaism, that's very connecting to me. Your soul works with breath. Your breath taps into your soul. Your energy shifts. And I always tear up when I get to that one because that's the deepest layer that all of these three work synergistically. You have to have and speak to all of them and be in touch with all of them. And it's another layer that if for some reason, for example, if you're the type that's telling yourself at night with the chocolate chip cookies, I know I shouldn't be eating this right now. Why am I eating it? I know I shouldn't be eating it. Guess what? You're speaking logic speaking to your brain, and it's your emotions who speak feelings driving you to eat the cookie. And going even deeper, okay, well, what's the real reason for those emotions? Well, that's your spirit and energy needing some love and breath, right? So you're speaking the wrong language when you're going for the cookies at night if you're speaking logic and it's not a logical thing. Now, sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm a big workouter. I do think logic first. Sometimes I just rationally ask myself, Beth, why are you craving chips right now? And I realize I worked out in the heat playing softball. I didn't drink enough, or maybe I did and I'm just missing electrolytes, my sodium levels. So I went for chips, which are super salty and crunchy. And if I answer that before, sometimes I could say, all right, I'll have some celery and I'll put an electrolyte tablet in my water and I'll make sure I drink right now. So sometimes logic works. Logic probably should be the first step, but you shouldn't stop there or get anxious that you can't answer the question. You should go the level deeper and say, what am I feeling right now? Maybe it's not on the logical level. That's okay, right? 3 levels of us. And the emotion section, what am I feeling right now? And this is where it gets touchy, guys, because it's hard to feel. It's hard to feel. And it opens things up. And guess what? Sometimes you might need a cry from that. I feel like I'm crying for you now in this podcast because I know for so many of you, working with so many of you, that it's hard to feel. And in myself, it was hard to learn to sit with feelings. But it's essential because if you want to change how you act out of emotions, you need to allow the feelings to feel. And on that deeper level of tapping into the soul of the spirit, that could just be as simple as breathing. Taking a breath, breathing in for 4, holding it, breathing out for 4 before you're going to go for those cookies. Guess what? You tapped into your third most deepest self. And between all those 3 communications inside you, going together, working together, being on a team, teamwork, supporting each other inside you, you might have a different outcome. Now you might. And you might end up eating the cookies anyway. But if you had that conversation, I guarantee you'd not only eat less cookies, but you'd leave feeling like eating cookies in those moments was the right decision for you. And sometimes that's okay, guys. Sometimes I have another 4 Trader Joe's cookies laying around. I had this conversation with myself and I said, okay, Beth, but you know what? The cookies really will make me feel good right now. Maybe I'll make it with a cup of tea and I'll just give myself a moment. And that's okay. That's okay. The issue becomes more when these things happen. I'm going to now tell you how to flag when emotional eating becomes a problem. 1, it's your only go-to coping mechanism. That means every time you're going for the cookies, every time you're having a feeling come up, it's your only go-to coping mechanism. 2, you don't know how to stop it or not do it. 3, you're not enjoying it while you're doing it. 4, it breeds more anxiety and harmful thoughts. 5, You're using it as a distraction from a conflict or feeling instead of dealing with the painful situations. Decisions need to happen, action needs to get done, and you're sitting there distracting yourself with the cookies from not making the decision. 6, it makes you feel worse than it did before. 7, you feel shamed or quick, like the actions are quick, so you quickly get through it. You're self-loathing on yourself, like you're hiding it. You aren't open to even yourself about it. That's what the quickness comes from. You don't even want to be honest about yourself that you're doing it. So that's powerful. Those would make them the flag. Not that you do it. Remember, on a physiological level, one of the signs of hunger is heart hunger. We have it in us and it needs to be satisfied. Then we discussed why there's so much emotion around it, which makes perfect sense. And then we discussed, the different levels of communication to each other. And then if we decide to still do it, that was a decision we made for ourselves and we're going to be happy in it and move on. But those are the flags of when that could turn. Too much of any good thing is not a good thing. Or, there's always flip sides to every coin. So those would be your flip sides. But I get excited in these flip sides. Some people feel a little dejected potentially hearing that. But these are areas and opportunity to change. When you hit on these like open nerves and something about what I'm saying is stemming something from you, that excites me as your dietitian. And I started life coaching even as a side, as a separate entity. Of course, I could bring them both in together, but I love these moments because it sparks a change and it's impactful and consistent and you'll be committed to it. So be open to what comes up and unfolds each layer. The next step comes with the step that you take now. You don't have to see how far you have to come. You just have to take that step in that moment and feel what that feels like. Now, all this comes from self-love. The ability to do any of this is self-love, which is why I keep expressing no shame, no judgment, be open, be curious, breathe. I encourage you to hear my podcasts on self-love and self-care. They're separate ones. Because you need to feel that you're deserving of the love you're giving yourself in that moment, the acceptance and the care and the support in that moment. You have to be open and accepting, like I said, not on the end results. I was working with a teenager and she keeps being fixated on the fact that when she comes home on Friday, she overeats her Friday night dinner as a snack and she keeps fixating, but I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm doing it. I said, but you can't focus on the end. We got to be open about before. We have to be curious about before. We have to see how we could help and support ourselves more before. The end is the end. It's never usually where we hit. It's usually what we could have done in the moment and before. You have to recognize that it's always okay to satisfy your needs in any way, shape, or form with food as well. You're deserving of it. It's never bad if you're giving yourself what you need in the moment, whatever that means. If you have this openness and curiosity in the moment, then you can then answer the question. So you're asking, what am I feeling in this moment? What do I need in this moment? When you recognize you're going for the cookies, you'll be surprised. You'll answer the question. And you might say, I need to have the cookies. Okay, how would you like to have the cookies? Continue the conversation. Or let's say it's a brownie. Well, do I want to warm up the brownie because it's happening and I'm doing it anyway? What would make me enjoy this brownie as much as I can? I'm going to warm it up. Guess what, guys? All this time that you're spending talking about it, doing it, heating it, it allows logic to come through. It allows all those 3 layers of you to talk to each other. And yeah, you'll still have the brownie. Remember, it's not the end result of the act of eating food. It's what you learned in the process about yourself and your needs and what to keep around you in the house and then how you felt after. Those are the indicators of where your weight, your health, your emotional health is going to go moving forward, not eating the stupid brownie. But you want to still have other coping mechanisms, guys. You want to still have a list of other coping mechanisms that are not food, so you don't have to go to the food every time. A hug, even if you hug yourself, breath work, Epsom salt baths with a candle. I do that. I do that with the rubber duckies. It is not luxurious nor sexy. I squeeze myself in there and it gives me a moment and it feels good. Manicure yourself or just learn how the ability and practice the ability to sit in discomfort long enough that you can make a mindful choice on how you want to proceed with intention, even if it means eating something in that moment. It just was an intentional choice that was mindful and that you feel honestly, intrinsically better moving forward. So the 5 things you can do instead. That's what I ask clients to do. That's what I post to you. Make a list, literally write it down with pen and paper. Have a journal, guys, by the way. I know people roll their eyes. I get it. Journaling meant something to me when I turned it into poems. I felt like it was a start and finish. I didn't ever consider myself a poet. I didn't think I knew how to write a poem. And yet here I am writing journals of poems. Handwrite a list of 5 things you can do instead of, let's call it, emotionally eating when you don't want to. I was working with a mom from Chicago, a client, and she has all little kids at home. And she was expressing, we've been working together a while. She was expressing that she was in a cycle of giving in too often to emotional eating and it wasn't making her feel good. She was trying to justify to me, but Beth, like there's so much going on in the world. These are real reasons that I'm feeling like this is really crazy. The world is crazy. Don't you agree? Well, first of all, you don't have to ever justify how you're feeling. Number one. Doesn't matter. You're having the feelings. So take a breath in that and feel you're having feelings right now. The issue here is that you don't feel good in what you're doing. And I asked her to come up with these 5 tips and she said 5 things she can do instead. And she said this is just what she's always done. This is what's familiar to her. And she doesn't even know what things she likes to do for herself or what would make her feel good to even put on that list. That's how out of touch, especially moms. It's not just her. Moms getting pulled in every direction, getting burnt out, dealing with a ton of priorities, thinking that it's selfish to take care of themselves, having people around them that tell them that they're being selfish and taking care of themselves. Lose all intuition and tapping into themselves, checking in with themselves, self-love, self-care. You lose it. It's okay, but we need to take it back. And if we don't take it back for ourselves, no one will give it to us. People are takers. It's just their nature. And you need to be able to get more in tune with yourself to find even what to put on this list, guys. So if you're having a hard time, it's a big flag for yourself to tap into you more in your day. So the way you can try to figure out what's your ideal day. I always ask people that. So many people don't know. If you could have a chance to do anything in your day for yourself, what would you do? Speechless. So here's how to try to tap into that. Number 1, come back to yourself. Okay? Come back to yourself. Give yourself a hug. Look in the mirror. Number 2, know you deserve it unapologetically. You are not sorry. I am going for my workout at 6 and I put it at 6 in the morning to try to not make it selfish if I could. But I'm taking that workout. It's a necessity. It's there to also allow you to help others. It doesn't matter what it looks like to anyone else. And go to my first episode on one of my first episodes on self-care. 3 is journal. We just talked about that. What you want and need, add and subtract, change it, be fluid. 4, commit to even 10 minutes of doing something intentional for yourself. Even drinking coffee in your car. My car is my big self-care space. I sometimes just sit in there 10 minutes longer than I have to walk inside. Or take a walk to check in with yourself. And number 5 is even date yourself. No one wants to go check out that new coffee place. Go yourself. Learn how to be alone a little bit, like with you in your own company. So some people don't feel they deserve love. They're not worthy enough to have a day for themselves. They don't deserve that. And that makes me so sad. And I just try to have you, especially if you're doing actions and behaviors that don't make you feel good and you don't know why, and you don't know why you're doing this. And I hear this talk so many times, guys. That's why I'm talking like this. This is the area you need to consider. Revisiting this podcast is what you need to consider. Now, emotional eating is just that way to suppress it, but it's really, a lot more around it, a lot more to it, a lot more from our childhood. It's just so much. That's why it feels overwhelming. And here are some just insights to end with about how to tame your, how to help your food and your mood at the same time in a way that makes you feel good. And we'll end with this: tame your stress. Tame. When I saw this word tame, I'm like, I feel like an animal. No, you're not an animal. But I got very into yoga. It took me months to feel the mind benefits of yoga. And if you're the one who's saying, well, my mind doesn't shut up in yoga, well, that's part of the point. For the mind benefits, you allow your thoughts to filter through. You learn how to be with them. Yoga is great because you're being with them in movement. So you're not necessarily sitting with them, even though there are aspects of yoga that you are sitting. At the end, when you're just laying there, that is an amazing time to sit with your thoughts. So that is a great practice where you also feel active and functional to start tapping into being alone with your own thoughts. Actually, of course, meditation. There's so many podcasts and YouTubes on this. There's also just deep breathing you can learn and breath work techniques. The next one is have a hunger reality check. Try to tap into rating your hunger levels before you eat and after. And after, meaning I'm stressing that because that will help lead you into the evening time of when you might pull out the snacks. Like, did that really satisfy you in the moment and fill you? 3 is just get support. And if you don't have supportive people around you, or something about what people around you are saying doesn't feel right on that soul level, on that spirit energy level, something's not feeling right, please go outside. Therapists, you could have that anyway, support groups, and start getting other support that actually makes you feel good. Number 4 is fighting boredom. Like, don't just sit there bored, or I always say, don't be a hero. Don't keep these things all around you when you're feeling vulnerable. And I'm not talking about not being able to keep cookies in your house because you're allowed to have a cookie. Let's not get extreme the other way now. This is not about that. This is about not testing yourself when you're feeling most vulnerable. That's not supporting and loving yourself. So come up with these things to do instead, and that would help fight boredom. And that actually leads into the next point, was taking away temptation. And I know there's this is why I never label myself as intuitive eating person or diet obsessed person, because the opposite ends of any spectrum that makes you feel a sense of judgment or shame, to me, is the same issue. And I feel both ends of that spectrum and labels have a tendency to do that. If you're feeling vulnerable, you do not need to be a hero. Do not keep things in your face that test you so much that you aren't in a strong enough place right now. I mean, just think about addiction. And potentially people can identify that with this. And maybe they do have a bit of addiction with it. But alcoholics don't keep alcohol around them. Why would you do that? You don't have to be a hero. So when you're feeling vulnerable, take it away for now. If it's not a true addiction, okay, so slowly you start to keep things in the house. Or you can still go treat yourself. Like, let's say you want to have cookies, but you're feeling vulnerable when you're home alone. Okay, so go to CVS when you're out or hanging with a friend, and that you can't keep the ice cream in your house, but when you go out with a friend, go get an ice cream. Potentially don't bring it back in your house until you're feeling stronger, and that's okay. So I really hope this connected with a lot of you. I started on a very basic physiological level, talking to our logic of our brain, started to tap into our deeper emotional roots and speak feelings that might come up from you and get you ready and open for them. And then tapping into your spirit, your soul, your energy with some breath, taking a breath before, recognizing all the layers of you that need to and should work synergistically. Everything about you is normal. Everything about you is lovable. Everything about you is just you. You're just learning all the levels of you and giving yourself the best relationship with yourself. And guess what? That also translates with your food. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nourish by Beth, or listen on Spotify at the Secrets to Mindful Health podcast.